information that we provided to the county in the past. I'm going to break from them some because a lot of the questions have been answered that I intended to address, and some new issues have come up. I think first off, this feeling that's been expressed that the water quality dynamics in that canyon are quite complicated and quite poorly studied. I just don't believe that either are the case. We've supplied a lot of the reports that we've consulted and data that we've tapped to complete our assessment to the county planning staff. And I guess the short of it is that those past studies weren't really completed. This assertion that they all assumed that there'd be no development, I don't think that's the case. I mean, those studies were completed to analyze what kind of a problem do we have here and what can we do about it. And that's what they did. And through the course of that, in intensive studies since the 70s and through 2000, problem water quality, mining-related water quality issues have been identified. Remediation plans have been developed and they've been done. And that's all resulted in significant improvements in water quality. It was stated that the Mary Ellen Creek drainage is toxic and dump it into where it dumps into the North Fork, and that's no longer true. It was in the past, but since remediation efforts done by Snowbird have been completed in conjunction with some other players, that water quality went from not meeting cold water fisheries standards, which are more stringent in terms of most metals than drinking water standards are, 100 feet below the mine tailings. Prior to that drain being installed in the reroute of the water, it didn't meet cold water fishery standards, and now it does just 1,000 feet below the mine tailings pile. From that point on, it continues to gain water, and by the time it joins the North Fork of the American Fork, it meets drinking water standards. So it's hardly a toxic stream flowing into there. Another indication from those past studies is people have talked a lot about total metals versus dissolved metals. And not to get too technical with that, but the statement was made that water running past tailings piles and stuff dissolves these metals and puts them into the water supply. And we have data here in my hand that shows that in those tailings piles, total metals concentrations are up to 200 times more than dissolved metals concentrations. And by dissolved, it means when you run an acid solution over them, equivalent to acid rain, how much of that total metal do you take off and put into the water supply? And it's a very small fraction of the total metals up there, which means that what we're really talking about is surface water transport of the soil, the material that's in those piles, not groundwater contamination and not dissolved metals in the water. That said, we recognize that the watershed's in an anti-degradation standard, so to put that in context, the potential for any undertaking in this small project area at the top of Mary Ellen Gulch to have a degrading effect on those water resources has to be viewed in terms of a lot of math that I can dumb down and summarize, say in as few numbers as possible. The area is small. It's 2.2% of the watershed. Somebody said that already. The offending water that drains through the project area, when it leaves the project area, has an annual average flow of about 3 CFS, and that equates to 5% over time of the total flow of the American Fork River, and to less than 0.5% of the total groundwater recharge to the northern Utah Valley Aquifer. It's 10 river miles upstream from the springs that we're talking about at the canyon mouth, and dilution effect as flow increases, which there are other ways to look at water quality. Certainly, the load is the opposite, just how much net metal is there in the water. But the standards are expressed, and the risks of use are expressed and defined in terms of concentration. So at the end of the day, the solution to pollution is dilution, and you've got 20-fold dilution before you get to the mouth of the canyon, to the area where groundwater is recharged. So, in short, it would take a fairly dramatic increase in metals released from the project site up there to result in degradation, or in terms of the county's ordinance and CUP regulations, and a unreasonable degradation or diminution of water quality. So to get more to the brass tacks, the effects on culinary water seem to be the highest priority here. As noted, drinking water is taken from several springs near the mouth of the canyon, from 2 springs in terms of municipal water at the mouth of the canyon, and then a number of these smaller communal water sources are the transient water sources and so forth, a couple of campgrounds, a couple of summer home communities, cabin communities, and so forth. Each one of those water sources has a source protection plan that has to be developed and approved by the state, by the Division of Drinking Water Quality. And including the 2 American Fork City springs at the bottom of the canyon, the recharge areas are in fact defined empirically, doing the science on them. They're mapped. We have the maps. I think they're among the materials we've submitted to planning. They extend up above the river. They extend up the slope as they would in a gaining reach of the stream. The water's coming into the stream up there, not going out. And the recharge areas extend in defined polygons above those springs. So they're simply not susceptible to any impact of this project, because groundwater impacts, for the reasons we've discussed, aren't in play. And the only way that the river water itself could affect them is if it flooded over the wellheads.
So explain to me again, I don't think the concern is the river. I think at least my concern is the groundwater, because nobody knows what's going on underneath that dirt. So why is the groundwater that is filling the spring for American Fork City not going to be impacted by putting in a ski tower?
Well, I'll give a short answer, but I'll also cite